Your home's value isn't just built on concrete and wood. It's built on water. And in America, that foundation is starting to crack. You've heard of a housing bubble, but what about a drought bubble? A terrifying scenario where home values, inflated by decades of growth, are floating on a resource that is quite literally disappearing. In this video, we're not just looking at statistics. We are taking a road trip across the United States to the 10 cities where this crisis is no longer a distant threat, but a clear and present danger. We're driving straight into the heart of the megadrought, to communities that are growing at an explosive pace while their water sources are shrinking just as fast. The scary part? Many of these cities are hiding the true severity of the crisis, terrified of the panic that would follow if the public knew the truth. We'll uncover the data, the desperate legal battles, and the shocking restrictions that are already being put in place. And you will want to stay with us for this entire journey, because the city at number 1 on our list has already done the unthinkable. It has officially started banning new home construction because the water is gone. This isn't speculation. This is happening right now. If you live in an area you suspect is at risk, let us know in the comments below. And if you find this investigation valuable, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more deep dives that the mainstream media often ignores. Our journey begins now.
Number 10. Miami, Florida. Our road trip begins in a place that seems like a paradox, Miami, Florida. You are surrounded by water. The Atlantic Ocean is on one side, Biscayne Bay on the other. So how could you possibly have a water shortage? The threat here isn't a lack of water. It's an invasion of the wrong kind of water. Miami's entire freshwater supply for nearly 3 million people comes from a single source, the Biscayne Aquifer. This is a massive, shallow, underground layer of porous rock that holds fresh rainwater. But as sea levels rise, a relentless wedge of saltwater from the ocean is pushing inland, underground. This is called saltwater intrusion, and it is irreversibly contaminating Miami's only source of drinking water. Data from the Environmental Protection Agency shows that the line of saltwater intrusion is advancing much faster than models predicted. In some areas, it has already moved inland by several miles. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is in a desperate race, spending hundreds of millions of dollars on projects to build underground barriers and pump fresh water back into the aquifer just to hold the line. Meanwhile, a report from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration projects that Miami could see up to 2 feet of sea level rise by 2050. This will dramatically accelerate the contamination. Researchers at the University of Miami have stated that the cost of managed retreat and adapting infrastructure will run into the billions. When your only source of fresh water is being poisoned by the sea, how can you sustain a housing market famous for its multi-million-dollar coastal properties? The bubble in Miami is the belief that they can engineer their way out of an environmental reality. When that belief breaks, the financial fallout will be catastrophic. If this look at Miami surprised you, wait until you see where we are headed next.
Number 9. Atlanta, Georgia. We leave the coast and head north to Atlanta, Georgia, the sprawling capital of the South. Atlanta's problem isn't the ocean, it's its neighbors. The city is locked in one of the longest and most expensive legal battles in American history, known as the Tri-State Water Wars. For decades, Georgia, Alabama, and Florida have been fighting over a single river system, the Apalachicola-Chattahoochee-Flint, or ACF River Basin. Atlanta's primary reservoir, Lake Lanier, is part of this system, and Atlanta, with its explosive population growth, has been accused by its neighbors of taking far more than its fair share. In recent droughts, Lake Lanier has dropped to historic, terrifying lows, revealing old roads and forgotten structures from the towns flooded to create it.
The Atlanta Regional Commission projects that the metro area will add another 2.9 million people by 2050. But where will the water come from? Florida argues that Atlanta's consumption is killing the oyster industry in Apalachicola Bay. Alabama argues it's stifling its own economic development. The U.S. Supreme Court has repeatedly been forced to intervene, and the legal fees for all parties have exceeded $100 million. This isn't a stable water plan, it's a house of cards. According to a study by the World Wildlife Fund, Atlanta is one of the most high-risk cities in the world for water scarcity. If a future court ruling or a severe enough drought forces Georgia to drastically cut its withdrawals from Lake Lanier, the entire engine of Atlanta's economy will seize up. Homebuilders and developers will be the first to feel the impact, as moratoriums on new water hookups become a real possibility. Do you think Atlanta can keep growing? Let us know, and let's head west.
Number 8. Denver, Colorado. Our journey now takes us west, into the arid heart of America. Welcome to Denver, Colorado, the mile-high city. Denver sits at the doorstep of the Rocky Mountains, and for a century, its growth has been fueled by a simple, brilliant idea: divert the snowmelt from the western side of the mountains to the dry eastern plains. But that plan relied on one massive, critical source: the Colorado River. Today, Denver and its surrounding suburbs pull more than 50% of their entire water supply from the Colorado River basin. But the river is dying. Fed by a snowpack that has been shrinking for 2 decades due to a historic megadrought, the river simply doesn't have enough water to serve the 40 million Americans who depend on it. Data from the National Snow and Ice Data Center shows a consistent decline in the spring snowpack that acts as the river's primary reservoir. As a result, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation has declared the first ever Tier 1, Tier 2, and even Tier 3 shortages on the river, forcing mandatory cuts. Denver Water, the city's utility, has some of the most senior water rights on the river, but that won't matter when there is no water to claim. The utility is already spending over $500 million to expand Gross Reservoir, a desperate attempt to store more water in wet years to survive the dry ones. But what if the dry ones become the norm? Denver's population has surged, with home prices nearly doubling in the last decade. But you are living in a city that is fundamentally over-leveraged on a single, failing water source. The entire housing market is based on a climate that no longer exists. Think about that as we continue our drive south into even drier territory.
Number 7. Austin, Texas. We've arrived in Austin, Texas, one of America's fastest-growing cities and a new hub for global tech giants like Tesla and Oracle. From the outside, Austin looks like it has plenty of water, with the beautiful Colorado River, the Texas one, not the big one, flowing right through downtown. But the lakes you see, Lake Travis and Lake Buchanan, are not constant-level lakes. They are reservoirs. And right now, they are in a state of collapse. According to the Lower Colorado River Authority, which manages the lakes, combined storage has fallen below 35%. In recent photos, billion-dollar waterfront homes now overlook vast rocky canyons. Boat docks that were once floating are now stranded hundreds of feet from the water's edge. The region has been scorched by record-breaking heat. Last summer, the city experienced over 45 consecutive days with temperatures soaring above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, shattering all previous records. This extreme heat evaporates water from the lakes at an alarming rate, while also causing a massive spike in water demand for lawns and pools. The city of Austin has been forced to implement Stage 2 drought restrictions, banning landscape watering more than once a week. But this is a drop in the bucket. The real problem is the relentless growth. A study from Texas A&M University warned that Austin's water supply could fall into a critical state within the next decade if a severe drought like the one from the 1950s returns. You cannot be the fastest-growing large metro in the country and have your primary reservoirs less than half full. The math simply does not work. The Austin drought bubble is popping in real time, and property values in waterfront communities are already taking a massive hit. Our next stop in Texas shows an even more fragile system.
Number 6. San Antonio, Texas. We drive south from Austin to its neighbor, San Antonio. This city has a completely different water problem, one that is totally invisible. Unlike Austin, San Antonio does not rely on rivers or lakes. Instead, more than 90% of its water is pumped from deep underground. The city sits on top of the Edwards Aquifer, a massive underground river system trapped in porous limestone. For generations, this aquifer was considered a miracle, providing some of the cleanest, most reliable water in the country. But San Antonio's explosive growth, which has made it one of the top cities for population gain in the nation, is draining the aquifer faster than rain can replenish it. The Edwards Aquifer Authority, which manages this precious resource, has a trigger. When the aquifer's monitoring well in the city drops below a certain level, mandatory, crippling water cuts begin. San Antonio has already been forced into Stage 4 restrictions, which severely limit all non-essential water use. Data from the U.S. Geological Survey shows the aquifer's level is on a dangerous downward trend. This isn't just about lawns. The aquifer's flow is all that keeps major springs, like the Camal and San Marcos springs, from running dry, which would wipe out several endangered species and devastate the local tourism economy. The city is desperately trying to diversify, spending billions on projects like a 150-mile-long pipeline to pump water from another distant aquifer. But this new water is expensive, and it's passing massive rate hikes onto homeowners. When your home's value is entirely dependent on a water source you cannot see, and that source is being drained to its breaking point, you are living on borrowed time. Leaving Texas, our journey takes us north, to a city facing a truly apocalyptic scenario.
Number 5. Salt Lake City, Utah. Our road trip now brings us to Salt Lake City, Utah. The city's very name is a clue to its impending disaster. The Great Salt Lake, the largest saltwater lake in the Western Hemisphere, is disappearing. For decades, the rivers that feed the lake, the Bear, Weber, and Jordan, have been diverted for agriculture and for the booming population of the Salt Lake City metro area. Now, combined with the megadrought, the lake is shrinking at an unprecedented rate. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, the Great Salt Lake has lost more than 70% of its volume. It is a fraction of what it was 50 years ago. This creates two distinct crises. The first is water. The shrinking lake is a symptom of the region's overall lack of water, which is forcing severe restrictions. The second crisis is far more terrifying. The lake bed that is now exposed is not just mud, it is laced with decades of industrial runoff, including high concentrations of arsenic, mercury, and lead. As the lake dries, this toxic sediment is picked up by the wind and blown directly into Salt Lake City as poisonous dust clouds. The Utah Department of Environmental Quality has issued multiple air quality warnings related to this dust, which can cause severe respiratory disease, cancers, and neurological disorders. You are facing a future where the air itself is toxic. The state government is in a state of panic, passing emergency measures and spending over $1 billion to try and get water back into the lake. But most experts say it is too little, too late. How can a housing market survive when you can't drink the water or breathe the air? If you live near Salt Lake, we truly hope you stay safe.
Number 4. Los Angeles, California. We now head to the state that defines America's water crisis, California. Our first stop is Los Angeles. Los Angeles is a desert metropolis, a glittering illusion built entirely on imported water. It's a city of 12 million people that should not, by any natural law, exist. For a century, Los Angeles has survived by pulling in water from hundreds of miles away. It relies on two primary lifelines: the State Water Project, which brings water from Northern California, and the Colorado River Aqueduct. Both of these lifelines are being severed. The State Water Project, dependent on the Sierra Nevada snowpack, has seen its allocations cut to as low as 5% of requested amounts in recent years. There is simply no snow to melt. And the Colorado River, as we saw in Denver, is in a state of crisis. The Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, which supplies Los Angeles, has had its Colorado River allocation slashed by hundreds of thousands of acre-feet. This agency, for the first time in its history, declared a water shortage emergency, forcing nearly 6 million residents onto strict one-day-a-week outdoor watering restrictions. According to the city's own data, Los Angeles imports nearly 85% of its water. Think about that. The entire multi-trillion-dollar Los Angeles housing market is dependent on a system that is now 85% broken. The city is desperately trying to adapt, investing billions in water recycling and stormwater capture, but it is decades behind schedule. The value of homes in Los Angeles is based on the assumption that the water will always flow. That assumption is no longer valid. As bad as this is, our next stop in California is even more dependent and in even more trouble.
Number 3. San Diego, California. We drive south to the end of the line, San Diego, California. If Los Angeles is on a lifeline, San Diego is on life support. San Diego is even more water dependent than Los Angeles. The city imports close to 90% of its water. Its local water sources are almost non-existent, and its primary source is the single most contested, over-allocated, and fastest disappearing river in the country, the Colorado River. San Diego holds some of the most junior water rights on the river, meaning it is one of the first in line to be cut during a shortage. Recognizing this extreme vulnerability, the San Diego County Water Authority made a massive bet. They spent over $1 billion to build the Claude Bud Lewis desalination plant in Carlsbad. This plant turns ocean water into drinking water. It was hailed as a miracle, a drought-proof supply. But it has come at a staggering cost. Desalination is incredibly energy-intensive, and the price of this drought-proof water is nearly double that of imported water. This cost is being passed directly to homeowners, whose water bills are now among the highest in the entire nation. Data from the San Diego Association of Realtors shows that housing affordability is already at an all-time low. Adding skyrocketing water bills will push thousands of families over the edge. And here is the fatal flaw. The plant only supplies about 10% of the region's needs. San Diego has mortgaged its future on a $1 billion insurance policy that only covers 10% of the damage. They are still almost entirely reliant on the collapsing Colorado River. This is a crisis with no easy exit. Let us know in the comments if you think desalination is a viable future.
Number 2. Las Vegas, Nevada. Our journey now takes us to the city that is the poster child for the American megadrought, Las Vegas, Nevada. More than 90% of this city's water comes from one place, Lake Mead, the massive reservoir held back by the Hoover Dam. And Lake Mead is draining to catastrophically low levels. The bathtub ring, the white mineral-caked rock showing how far the water level has dropped, is now visible for over 100 feet. According to the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, the lake is hovering at or below 28% capacity. It is so low that the city's original water intake valve, built in the 1970s, is now exposed and useless, sticking out of a dry hillside. This forced the Southern Nevada Water Authority to spend over $1.5 billion on a third straw, a deeper intake drilled into the bottom of the lake to suck up the last remaining water.
Las Vegas has been praised for its conservation efforts. They have banned ornamental grass and are paying residents cash to tear out their lawns. But these measures are just slowing the bleeding. The federal government has declared a Tier 3 shortage for the entire lower Colorado River basin, forcing Nevada to take a massive cut in its water allocation. The city's entire economy, the casinos, the fountains, the millions of tourists, and the booming housing market is all built on a rapidly emptying puddle. The only thing keeping the housing market from collapsing is the desperate belief that it might rain next year. But as one climate scientist at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas put it, hope is not a water management strategy. The city is one bad drought year away from a complete catastrophe. And now, we drive to the #1 most dangerous city on our list.
Number 1. Phoenix, Arizona. Here we are, the final stop on our journey, and the most terrifying. Phoenix, Arizona. This is where the speculation ends, and the collapse has already begun. Like its neighbors, Phoenix is almost entirely dependent on the Colorado River, delivered via the 300-mile-long Central Arizona Project Canal. Arizona was the first state to have its Colorado River water cut to near zero. The Central Arizona Project is, for all intents and purposes, dry. For decades, the city's backup plan was groundwater. Developers were allowed to build massive, sprawling suburbs based on the promise that they could just drill deeper wells. But last year, the Arizona Department of Water Resources released a bombshell report. After a 10-year study, they concluded that there is not enough groundwater beneath the Phoenix metro area to support the new housing developments that have already been approved. The state announced that it would immediately halt all new housing construction in the suburbs ringing the city that could not prove a 100-year assured water supply. This is it. This is the moment the drought bubble bursts. This is the first time in modern American history that a major metropolitan area has been forced to ban new homes because there is, literally, no water. A report from the Kyle Center for Water Policy at Arizona State University found that over 80,000 approved housing units are now in jeopardy, vaporizing billions in future development. If you bought a home in one of these new suburbs, what is its true value when your neighbors cannot build and your own well may one day run dry? Phoenix is the canary in the coal mine. It is the first domino to fall. The housing collapse isn't coming, it's here.
Our journey has taken us from the saltwater intrusion in Miami to the toxic dust in Salt Lake City, and finally to the hard stop on construction in Phoenix. The link between water availability and your home's value is no longer a theory. It is the single most important and most overlooked factor in real estate. These 10 cities are just the beginning. The drought bubble is real, and it is deflating. If this investigation provided you value, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to see this, and subscribe to our channel for more critical analysis. And let us know in the comments, is your city doing enough to prepare for this water crisis? Thank you for watching.